We're entering a new world for warfare, one where killing is mechanized and automated, and robots that are designed to track enemies and eliminate them as fast as possible have entered the battlefield, with the main place being Ukraine. This is a Ukrainian kamikaze drone. It basically rams into targets with high-powered explosives, and it's been used to destroy this oil depot and this Russian ship, and a lot more targets. And drones like these are being made for around 400 apiece, but they're also developing more weapons. This is a machine gun that can be controlled with a PS5 controller. While a human is still in charge, the developers have admitted that they could easily make the gun fire on its own. It's weapons like these and many more in this video that are worrying a lot of people, with some even going so far as to call killer robots the next weapons of mass destruction. And I don't think we're ready for the dystopian possibilities this could bring. So Ukraine had a pretty big disadvantage when the war first started. Russia had 4.5 times more soldiers than Ukraine, and the rest of their military was far superior in literally every category. So what do? Well, first of all, you're going to have to be a lot more careful with what you have. As opposed to Russia's meat grinder, Ukraine actually has to conserve soldiers and resources. And so this is where weapons controlled from afar can be really useful. Not only can you save your soldier from being shot on the front lines, but when you're actually fighting, you can have more precision. So pretty early on, it became a no-brainer for Ukraine to use drones. But here's the thing, they quickly ran into a big issue. Russia quickly adapted to the drone tactics that the Ukrainians were using, and they set up vehicles with signal jammers every couple of miles or so. And these jammers would essentially make the drones fall out of the sky. What's worse is Russia started using the signal that the drone pilots use to track them. So if you were flying a drone, you could risk having your location compromised and an artillery strike obliterating you. Not really what you want to be happening. And so this is where artificial intelligence comes into play. Ukrainian companies started experimenting with their drones and other robots. And all of these experiments have one goal in mind, and that's to teach the robot to run on its own. Any picture, video, or text that could be gathered started getting fed into the AI. This data started being used to help drones navigate in their environment without a GPS signal or a signal from the pilot. I do want to make one thing clear though, any of the weapons being used now still require a human input, but it's also really easy to make them run on their own. It's a logical next step. Right now, the hit rate for Ukrainian FPV drones with human pilots is 30 to 50%. There have been predictions that it could jump to 80% with a fully AI-powered drone. Weapons could get very deadly very fast. And so, has Ukraine's plan to level the playing field actually worked? Well, since the beginning of the war, Russia has absolutely dominated the water. They have massive fleets stationed along the coastline, stopping Ukraine from getting out exports. On top of that, they put cruise missiles on the ships, and that allowed them to blow up stuff deep inside Ukraine. This is a big problem because Ukraine's navy was, frankly, pathetic. So what do? Well, this is where Ukraine started using a new type of drone, a sea drone. Sea drones started prowling the waters of the Black Sea, and they really worked. Ship after ship started getting sunk. It was to the point where Russia had to relocate their ships to a different port. But the drones followed them there. Ukraine's investment into sea drones really started to wreak havoc on the Russian Navy. But what about on land? What if you could create a machine gun that automatically detects enemies and fires at them? Oh, wait, they're working on that too. This is Wall-E, not Wall-E. Wall-E, though the name was actually inspired from the movie. They come with a price tag of about $10,000 each, and they can be controlled and fired remotely. They can also run autonomously for 130 hours straight. That's over 5 days. And the AI on this gun can recognize targets and judge distances they are from the gun. This makes it deadly accurate. But do you know what could make them better? Well, maybe better is not the right word. Guns that move. And this brings us around the world because almost every major military is developing these. These are robot dogs with guns put on them. China recently displayed their use of them in a military exercise. They have wide-angle cameras, submachine guns on them, and these are popping up everywhere. The US is making them. India, France, the UK, they're all making them. And so for right now, it's clear that we're headed in the direction of AI killer robots. But should we? Because things could go south in some really bad ways, and it might not be the ways that you would first think of. The first is these things are cheap. The cheapest Ukraine FPV drones only cost a couple $100s. These are some pictures of some Ukraine drones that show Raspberry Pis on them. The software they use is Betaflight, which is a software I found after about a minute of Googling. Plus, after a little searching, I found an entire article that details how to make a kamikaze drone from scratch. A whole tutorial. And one Ukraine AI expert estimated that it would only cost around $150 to make an AI system that can lock onto targets. My point is, it's not good that these things are so accessible and cheap. Anyone with some technical expertise and a little money to spend could make one of these. That means terrorists, assassins, any bad actor you could think of could easily make one and attach explosives to it. And what about the day when these run completely on their own? You could just be sitting in a park, strap some extra batteries onto your drone, and have it assassinate someone all while just sitting on a bench and chilling. When the risk you take to do something is lowered, you're more likely to do it. Also, if you have a drone completely controlled by AI, the barrier for entry is lowered even further. It's bad enough that these things are so cheap, but at least you had to know how to fly one a little. If there's a button that you can press that can make it go on autopilot, that makes it super easy for anyone to operate an autonomous killer robot. So this obviously is an atomic bomb. Pretty deadly, not something you would want to be around if it goes off. And we classify them as weapons of mass destruction because, well, they are. But what about a pack of drones or gun-mounted robo-dogs? Let's say a country with a lot of money makes around 500,000 of these. Well, if you have a drone swarm of 500,000, all with explosives, you would be able to kill 500,000 people, or robot dogs. What if you had a pack of 10,000 of them, gave them thermal vision to detect life, and gave them a geofence to eliminate everything in a certain area? They would eventually do that. Autonomous weapons have a unique capability, and that is scale. Sure, you can make a bunch of atomic bombs, but drone swarms and dog packs are a lot more flexible and cheaper to mass produce. And remember, with anyone being able to make them, the real limit is just how much you're willing to spend. And with how deadly they are at striking targets, you would at least think they wouldn't make mistakes, but that's the thing, they do. AI, as we've seen, still makes pretty bad mistakes in terms of information. What if you have a drone that comes across a residential apartment block, but in its eyes, it sees a military target? It doesn't reason. It doesn't contemplate. As soon as it sees it, it could strike without a second thought. Or think about this. Drones have chips in them, and chips can be hacked. You could deploy a swarm of 1,000 drones out in the battlefield and then have a random person come along, gain control, and then direct them back at you, wiping out your entire platoon. So now I hope you're getting the picture that autonomous weapons could easily devolve into a chaotic mess where no human wins in the scenario. Everyone dies. Oh, well, there's gotta be ways that you could stop people from using them. Well, yeah, a lot of experts have said we should pass regulations that completely outlaw autonomous weapons in war. And while yes, this could work, we also have laws such as you can't attack hospitals, you can't make biological weapons, you can't bomb civilians. A law banning autonomous weapons could work on paper, but with the advantages it would bring, it would be pretty hard to think that all countries would abide by the rules, especially if they get desperate. What it's going to take is countries sticking to their treaties and laws enough to keep the balance from tipping. Once countries start skirting the rules, then it undermines everything. And now when looking at this, you have to ask why. What are these weapons supposed to accomplish? Well, for one, it takes humans out of the loop. That means less soldiers being put in danger on the battlefield or making errors. But it also makes it easier to kill because it dehumanizes the enemy. We've gone from slashing your enemies directly in your face to dropping bombs on them from behind a computer screen. And with autonomous weapons, all you have to do is press a button. You don't have to see the aftermath of what you did. You don't have to wrestle mentally on whether you made the right decision. For all you care, that person didn't even exist. They were reduced to the tap of a button. And then you might be tempted to think, oh, well, that's not so bad. You see, the more we're detached from people, the easier it is to not think of them as people, and that makes it easier to harm them. And this is really dangerous. The last thing we need is a tool that helps us kill more easily. These tools aren't really a benefit to humanity. Sure, you save soldiers' lives on the battlefield, but you also create the possibility of weapons of mass destruction and scale. So is it worth it? No. We need to become more connected with each other. The more we see the people around us as actual people, the more we value them, and honestly, the better things are. I don't think we want to entrust the life of a fellow human with a cold and unfeeling robot. And speaking of unfeeling robots, chatbots today are sounding eerily human, but the conversations don't always go as planned. This was the case with the Snapchat AI. If you want to learn more about that, or if you liked my segue, you should click the video on your screen right now.